10 years ago, Jeff Kudlacik miraculously survived a crash that split his car in two.
I was driving home, and the next thing I know, I woke up, 19 days had passed. I was in an induced coma, all because of the, drunk driver hitting me in just one night, 1 second. That's all it took.
A decade later, the crash still haunts him. It was Jeff's 23rd birthday, and he was on his way home from a shift waiting tables.
Well, it was pretty much like a quarter of a second, half second, probably for making it through the light, and he ended up hitting me. Car spun, kind of split in two. I was ejected from the vehicle.
Here's Megan Alexander.
How could anyone survive this? A car is literally split in two.
911.
Major accident.
Okay.
There's two vehicles. One person is laying on the side of the road.
Was he thrown from the car?
Yes, lots of blood.
The impact sends the innocent motorist flying through the windshield. You can see Jeff's car split in half as police and emergency units converge at the scene outside Kansas City.
One of the officers on the truck said, "I don't think he's alive."
Jeff was clinging to life. His prognosis looked grim.
We know the guy is probably going to pass. According to medic, he's probably going to pass.
Police went to Jeff's home to notify his parents, Rick and Kim, a moment captured on audio tape.
We have a son. He was involved in a serious injury accident tonight.
Please tell me he's okay.
He has not passed away, but I'm telling you, you need to get yourself to the hospital.
We were just in complete shock when the police officers came to the door. It's your worst nightmare.
Wasn't wearing a seatbelt at the time. I wear it now. And luckily, I landed in grass, so I avoided any kind of head or spinal injury. I coded twice, so they had to revive me twice, and it was to the point of they're about to open up my chest and start massaging my heart and actually doing compressions. But luckily, I woke up. That final time was stabilized, and then they put me in induced coma for the surgeries that were about to ensue.
The driver that plowed into Jeff, Michael Smith, was given a sobriety test at the scene.
You're under arrest for operating a vehicle while under the influence of alcohol.
Jeff suffered countless injuries, including bruised ribs, a punctured lung, and broken femurs. He was in the hospital for 10 weeks and in an induced coma for 3 of them. Then, one day, he finally opened his eyes.
First person I saw was my mom. Couldn't move my legs, couldn't move my feet, couldn't feel my toes, couldn't feel anything.
18 months later, he was walking again without support. We spoke to him in 2018 as he reunited with the first responders who saved his life.
Without these firefighters and people like these guys, I wouldn't be here right now.
In the years since the crash, Jeff spent his time lobbying lawmakers, hoping to hold bars accountable.
Yeah, essentially, it's just, if you give somebody a drink, at least offer, call a cab, do something, not just let the guy walk out or let the girl walk out with just no kind of accountability or kind of check in place.
But Kansas State Supreme Court shot down a proposed law that would have allowed victims of drunk drivers to sue the bars or restaurants that served them.
My feelings after the decision, it was one of those things where my lawyers had told me at the start, it's going to be a long shot and there's a 99% chance you're going to lose. But it was that 1% chance that it could succeed, or at least for future cases, because now that case is going to be, forever enshrined as something within law that will be discussed.
As for the driver that hit him, he pleaded guilty to aggravated battery while driving under the influence and sentenced to more than 2 years in prison. Jeff was in the courtroom.
That's the only time technically I've seen him, and the only personal time was, again, we kind of looked at each other and he just said he was sorry and, he remorseful for it. But that was pretty much the only time I've spoke with him.
The devastating accident changed Jeff's life in many ways.
I had to get a trach. My vocal cord were bowed, so I had to work with a speech therapist, which she's now my wife.
That's right. Jeff is now married to the speech therapist, Elizabeth, who treated him after the crash. Admittingly, he was always smitten with her. But it wasn't until a year later during a hospital visit checkup where he sealed his fate.
I went to the cafeteria for lunch, and she happened to be walking through, and we sat, she sat down at the table, and we were talking. I was telling her, hey, I have a fundraiser at Topgolf coming up. If you want to come, just give me your number and I can give you more details. So she gave me her number. I told her what that was, and then I think the week after I was like, hey, you want to get dinner? She said yes, and then the rest is history.
What do you make of all of that this accident led you to meeting your wife and having your 2 children?
So the fact this happened, I think there's a reason, and if it was to meet her and have our 2 kids, then I'm okay with that.
Jeff, who was a waiter at the time of the crash, now works for an engineering firm. He also is a public speaker, sharing his story in hopes of making a difference.
Yeah, I've always lived my life where I like to help people. Before the crash, I wanted to be a doctor. So if there's one way I could help somebody or just prevent this in the future, that's what I would like to do.
I'm Leigh Scheps for Inside Edition Digital.